You really don't like me.
Hi, Bill.
Hi, Sandy. How are you?
I'm fine.
Sandy doesn't like me today. What are we talking about today?
I questioner.
Are you the questioner?
Am I? Am I really the questioner? So, I question. Do I?
Is this Descartes or Shakespeare? What are we talking about here?
Maybe a bit of everything, but really this sense that we do have kind of fundamental questions in our lives, all of us, and they're oftentimes very similar questions to each other. And I wonder if we really do ask them of ourselves, and if we go deeply into those questions of our lives, or if we turn away from them, because answers to life's big questions are often extremely hard,
Sure.
to make, very challenging. But also the sense that I question, I could say, who's the I? When I think I'm asking a question of myself, is it really me? Is it an ego asking? Is it some other thing, some deep well source of wisdom that prompts the question in itself? Or is it, what is it?
Or some other idiot that somehow got stuck in your craw and you have to answer it for yourself.
Well, anyway. It strikes me as something that is important to question, is whether we question at all.
Okay. Wait, let me get this straight. You're wondering when we question ourselves, if it actually is us asking the questions.
Well, that's part of it. But the other part simply is that I'm aware there are big questions that we might ask of ourselves in our lives. Or at least there's an awareness that there are these big questions. Do we really ask them? And also, I'm wondering often now whether we only ask ourselves questions we already know the answers to.
Like a good attorney.
Anyway, we're going to start with Francesca Woodman from the series she made when she was on exchange in Rome.
How soon after did she die?
She died in 81, I think.
Okay.
So, for people who don't know who Francesca Woodman is, she's a very prolific photographer who sadly took her own life when she was still a very young woman. There's lots of contention about, that her work is always about her suicide, and actually even her mum says, how frustrating it is that her work is seen only as a document that leads to a suicide.
Yeah.
When actually there's many aspects to Woodman's work, and it's become widely celebrated. She felt very frustrated by all accounts during her lifetime that her photography didn't really take off in quite the way she'd hoped. But one could also say that she came from relative privilege. She was very well educated. Her family were, I guess, intellectuals, certainly creatives. They had, she was American. She grew up in Connecticut, I think. Her parents had a home also just outside of Rome. But when she made these photographs, she was there, as I said, an exchange from, I think, Rhode Island
School of Design.
Yeah.
RISD.
Yeah. So, she was kind of well versed in what I think of as like academic visual vernacular. She was in a deeply experimental phase, really, for the entirety of the work that we see, because her life ended shortly after this, really. And who knows what might have happened had she chosen to live and kept on photographing. And that in itself is a question, but perhaps a pointless question, because we'll never know.
Do you think that because she took her own life, that we all just choose to imbue all of her pictures with that maybe that's nothing about what they were about.
This
Maybe
is
it's not even that struggle. Maybe she's just playing an acting part right here, as like she's acting like a tiger or something like that, and we don't even know it.
exactly. I mean, the title gives something else to it, I suppose. But
Sure.
as I said already, you know, there's a real frustration in her family that her work is only seen as this kind of psychoanalytic exploration of suicide, and it's not. This is about life.
Yeah.
This is about life. Woodman's work to me is so much about life. It's about its transience, and yes, it's melancholy sometimes, if that's what we choose to see in it. But do we really question, when we look at this work, what she actually felt when she was making it? We might have some sense of how she felt, how strongly, deeply, sadly she felt later. It was the end of a relationship, I think, that eventually tipped her over the edge. But you know, her life wasn't entirely about that. She's the most vivid young woman. And seeing photographs of her with other young women of a similar age who would have probably been her friends or even her lovers, perhaps, who knows, looking just like really any other 19, 20, 21-year-old in this context of art making, this exploration. I know you often scoff at art school and those of us who've been, but it is a most unusual situation for most people to find themselves in, this sense of, in some ways, freedom to explore and experiment. And this photograph speaks to me of somebody who is experimenting. And also, I have to say, with all due respect to people who are still in their late teens and early 20s, though everything about somebody in their late teens or early 20s might appear to be adult, there's still such often kind of navel-gazing naivety
Yeah.
at that age. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I see her in this picture as a very young girl. I don't see it as I recently went through and read all kinds of notes and letters and things that I had from when I was a teenager and in my college years and a little after college. And it's so funny reading them now as, you know, a person in their mid to late 40s, because yes, I felt the way that they're written when I was that age, but now reading them with the perspective that I have now, everything was so heightened. It was like I was on drugs. I was on hormones basically. And it's interesting when I see people photographs and images like this. It's like, I can imagine what was going through her head. I personally don't give it a magical quality. To me, I look at her and go, oh my God, she's such a baby. Like she's making something that she thinks is really deep, but it's really not that deep. But people, but then people ended up thinking that it was deep because she killed herself. Well, I think there's a lot of that.
I don't think that youth means lack of sensitivity.
No, I think it's oversensitivity.
Maybe, but I would say that there is enormous depth to this work, even if it's the depth that comes from that most self-involved part of being young and creative.
Would you say that these images are self-indulgent?
Probably. And I completely relate to them, because I have to say that at the same age, at the same stage,
you were making things where you were naked crawling around corners?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not joking. You know, I think,
no.
there's a very particular type of human as well, in these photographs. And I do relate to this type of human. It is, for some people, just a bit too much self-involvement. That's fine. But for people who are interested in their own, I don't know, a sense of discovery within oneself, this kind of work seems to be, the way to go. Now, not everybody's work is going to be as beautifully executed as this, and there is a kind of ethereal, ephemeral quality to this print particularly, but also more widely in her work. There's lots of smudging and, lots of distortion through blur, beautiful silvery quality to it always, and otherworldliness. That's what I see. But I do continue to question it. And I think that I feel glad that I didn't stop just at saying Francesca Woodman committed suicide, because I think that does a great disservice both to her as the artist and to me as the viewer.
Yeah, I think that a lot of her images are excellent. I wish she had lived longer so that I could have seen more of what she would have done.
Mm.
I do feel like she is the patron saint of art school females.
Yep.
And I think she's some sort of idealized version of, and I'm not saying there aren't men or people who identify as male who love her work. Of course there are, but almost every woman that I know who's a photographer loves Francesca Woodman, and most men wouldn't put her on the top 5 or 10. And I wonder if there is a sense of everyone wants to be her. Oh my God, she's beautiful and creative and good at composition and mysterious and inward looking. But did she find something? I don't know. Maybe the thing that she found is something that I could find. Like the whole thing has a very, and I'm going to use a thing that you have said before, not you've said before, but is more in thinking with you. The whole thing wraps up in a very like feminine way of looking at art.
Is it feminine, or is it simply the universal quality of sensitivity?
I think in this case, it's the feminine quality of sensitivity.
Are you simply diverted by the fact that she is female?
No, I mean, I don't know what the equivalent would be. I don't know, like would a masculine version of this be, Eddie Adams or something like that, some war photographer or Kappa? Like, I don't know. Like,
I'm kind of freaking out a bit at this what to me, frankly, and sorry, Bill, does seem to be a very lazy way of positioning this artist.
I don't mean it to denigrate the work. What I'm saying is that people who in my experience, the people that I know who put her up on a pedestal are doing so for their reasons, not for any reasons that has to do with her.
But maybe this, please don't miss the point. That's why I put it in this the presentation. I question, do I?
Right, but I'm saying she was questioning herself, maybe.
Am I still engaged in that wise way of questioning? Do I take it as a given that this work, for example, is about a young woman who was mentally unstable and eventually took her own life? No. Shame on me if that's where I stopped my question. Do I continue to question and inquire into this work? Yes, I do. It doesn't make me better, special, or particularly smart. But
my point, yeah.
What it says and suggests is that there's more yield in the continuing question than there is in simply battening down those hatches and saying, aha, I know this.
My point being that I think that there's a soft, squishy part of an analysis of an image like this where people see what they want to see, whether or not it's there. And that soft, squishy part is inside themselves. So you could argue, to your point, that this kind of work prompts people to, they want to have the mysterious experience they think that she is having in this photograph. but and that may be a perfectly valid thing to do.
Right.
But
Let's
I
not
don't.
forget that in the same way that we could sometimes say that we feel a bit browbeaten by our the past that doesn't belong to us yet makes us up, coming back to hold us to account.
Yeah.
In the same way, I could say that I understand my privilege, that I have been the pretty naked girl making photographs in Rome.
Sure.
I know that one.
Yep.
I understand the privilege.
Did you find answers?
Well, again, in context of our question, I think what I found is that I enjoyed questioning.
Mm. Mm.
Mm.
No. I mean, listen, that is
Oh
that
my
is that
God.
is very in keeping with the Sandi Bill relationship, which is I prefer the answer, you prefer the question. Right.
But the great thing about this, Bill, is that where we're not at odds is that we both must therefore also understand that there is some question somewhere.
Yeah. But I will say though that what I worry about, not worry about, my concern with this kind of work is that there's an illusion that there is something deep out there or in there, and
There.
yeah,
Of
in
it.
your own mind or something, right?
No,
But
no.
I think the reality is that life and the world and everything is not nearly as deep as people want it to be. I think that's disappointing to a lot of people.
But what if it is? What if there's
Sure.
something
What if it is?
profoundly meaningful, beautiful, transporting, transcendent? What if there is? Even then, I would say, don't stop the question.
Right.
Whatever,
Because you prefer.
whatever that inquiry is, there's not a resolution. There's not
No.
resolve. And
But
that's actually, I would say, before we go on to the next image, that's also why not just this image, but all of Woodman's work is incredibly meaningful, because it does keep asking questions. It keeps yielding questions over time. And even now, as a middle-aged woman looking at this young woman in this photograph, it brings up further questions still. So this is like the gift that keeps on giving.
what if she was still alive and we asked her and she said, I don't know, I was just messing around because I look good naked. So I had a mirror. So I was just messing around. It wasn't that deep. Do you think it would make any difference? Doesn't make a difference. Yeah.
Matter.
I think I spent many years thinking that my experience was not necessarily deeper, but unique. And I don't know, I've come around to a different sense in the last few years.
Maybe your experience is unique, but the consciousness that you're part of in that experience isn't unique at all.
I think maybe it's the other way around, that in my thought process, which is that yes, I guess, in my experience is unique in the sense that in some sort of chaos theory, no one else has lived the exact same life as me. But I think that all people fall in love, all people feel lonely, all people feel,
Yeah.
beauty at the sunset and all the rest of it. And that it's the proportion of those things, sure. But in the words of that old song, that's all there is. So I look at this and I go, it's a 19-year-old girl who thinks that like, ooh, it's really deep and mystical. And it's not. It's just you look really good in a picture in a mirror.
I still think that there's this edge in you about this. There's a kind of bitterness. And I question that. I would say that,
Only because I think that energy could be better used in something that actually exists. I feel like this is a phantom. It's a ghost. It's like trying to grab a cloud.
Why not try and grab a cloud?
Because you're never going to catch it.
Oh, Bill.
What's the next image?
Is this one?
You're not done with this one.
I'm not done with this one, but I think
Okay.
you are going to have to be done with this one because you and I might actually
We have a time limit.
properly fall out though about this one.
Yeah.
Mainly because I think you're actually being very dismissive. And I wonder
Of you or of Francesca Woodman?
Probably both. Probably both.
I mean, listen, I believe that the experiences that I've had both in art and relationships in life are beautiful, transcendent things. But I think the experience of that transcendence is ultimately just the way that our brains have evolutionarily determined to respond to those things, to give us pleasure, to keep us going. I don't think that they are sacral or divine. I think that transcendence is actually rather ordinary. As beautiful as it is, it's not as mysterious as it makes it out to be. I don't know. That's just where I've gone.
Lots of values there that you're putting into words.
Sure.
The word, of course, not being the thing. But if you're going to say words like ordinary and gives them such a negative charge.
I don't think that they're negative. What I'm saying is it's not negative. If anything, it's beautiful in its commonness. You know, you don't have to be special to have a transcendent experience. You don't have to be searching in your birthday suit in an old house in Rome with a broken mirror.
But why not? In that,
because it's self-indulgent, because it's just like it's eye-rolly. It makes it seem like her experience of depth and meaning in life is so much more than you could possibly understand. No, it's not. You're a teenager with hormones.
Yes, all of that is true in some way, but also listen to your cynicism. Yeah. Listen to your unflinching self-righteousness that this is somehow beneath the adult mind. Now, I appreciate that, as I said before, I was saying, I understand that at age 19, you know, we're not fully adult, but that doesn't mean we're not hugely sensitive. It doesn't mean that we're not completely intelligent. You know.
Yes, but I don't think any of those things are special. I think those things are actually rather ordinary.
Again, I think the values you're putting onto words like special, you know, this is special and it's ordinary. Those things aren't opposing.
Right. But I'm just saying that you, I mean, your value judgment on it is similar to mine, just in a different direction. It's like, I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm just saying that in doing so, I don't think anything was learned by Francesca Woodman that wasn't learned by the billions of people who lived before her.
Okay.
I think that they are a good artist who made beautiful compositions, and that's fine. And this is speaking of listen, I've spent 25 years of my entire adult life as a professional artist, and it's hard, it's difficult, it's all about creativity, and it's about looking inward, and it's about all of those things. I'm certainly not some guy who works at a coal mine who thinks that it's all a bunch of nonsense. But I don't buy into the magic, I guess is what it is.
I think there are some people who can be artists and can think that they kind of worship at the well source of creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are some people who can work down a coal mine and be totally alive with creativity.
Sure. Yeah. I wasn't trying to be disparaging to a coal miner. I was just trying to come up with somebody who would think that a lot of art is a bunch of hocus pocus.
Well, hocus pocus indeed.
Mm.
You had a bit of a
Cool.
moment that I was showing a Francesca Woodman image and this again. But actually, in terms of our title, and
Just want to make sure you weren't losing it in some way.
well, no more than usual. And I do love the Weather Project. But also, again, in terms of questioning, what I found so interesting in actually being with this was that there was the sense that anyone would give a shit about the actual mechanics of it.
You're surprised that anyone would?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I would walk in the room and be just like, how do they do that? That would be the main thing that I'd be interested in.
I walked into the turbine hall, and even before I think I realized it was the thing you were supposed to do, I'd lay on the ground. I just lay down. I just thought it was so touching, special. Again, special, ordinary, so ordinary. The sun.
Yeah, sure. Couldn't be more ordinary.
Right? But
and how dismissive we are about the real thing.
Well, actually, no. Again, there are some of us who can go inside a giant turbine hall and be amazed by the fake sun, still do go outside and are amazed by the real sun. Again, I don't think they are necessarily separate or oppositional. What I do believe in, as you know, and that you rally against, is magic and the sense of magic in work. So to me, I couldn't care less about the mechanics. I understand Eliasson is invested in, illusion. I admire him. I really do. But I cared so little about it in the moment of this. But it didn't mean I didn't question something.
What did you question?
I questioned myself, lying and looking at it, about what really was happening within me. Why is this so beautiful? Why was my instinct to lie on the ground? I mean, many other people, yes, were lying on the ground as well. But as I said, it was almost like it was a spell cast over me.
Yeah.
I just wanted to spend forever there looking. I mean, I know I frequently sound like a total crackpot. But, evidence would suggest that there are many other people who felt the same way. And my error actually was not to turn around to other people and ask them. It seemed inappropriate, I guess, at the time. Ask them, what are you questioning when you're actually living this? And that's the question, isn't it? Is that you said something about, how little kind of respect we pay to the real thing. We don't pay attention to it. Well, actually, yes, we do. Lots of us. But,
yes, but you in some ways, I feel like, I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that in some ways it's about the heat and about the symbolism, about the nurturing quality of the sun. It's these kinds of ideas that you're thinking about, where I would think about, the fusion reaction that's going on in the core of the sun that's 8.5 light minutes away. And if it went out right now, we wouldn't know it went out for another 8.5 minutes because the light that is, has already left there that's going to be hitting us for the next 8.5 minutes. Those are the things that I'm thinking about while looking at the sun.
Yeah, I mean, when I visited, did anyone actually go up to the back wall?
Yeah.
That would be you, Bill.
Yes, it would be. But I guess my question is, why is my questioning of it, are the questions that I'm asking myself any less valid than the ones that you're asking you?
No, absolutely not. But isn't it so fascinating, these questions we ask ourselves?
Sure. Hey, just I can't. I don't. I wasn't there. Is that the east wall or the west wall?
That is
It's the
the
bottom of the slope.
east wall at the bottom of the slope.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, the wall that's
Yeah, yeah. St. Paul's is to the left.
yeah.
Okay. Um. Yeah.
I mean,
I guess the big question is that, like, what is the makeup of you and I? Is it our experiences that change the way that we question ourselves? Like, is it that your experience have caused you to seek more answers, and mine somehow come out to, I feel like most of those answers I'm looking for are probably already come up with by somebody else, and let me just go read what they wrote about it. I wonder if it's
satisfied if I don't find an answer, Bill. I think this is something.
you are satisfied even if you don't find an answer. Is that what you said? Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, what I mean is that I don't necessarily have to have an answer to feel satisfied.
Yeah,
with the question.
sure. And that is definitely something you and I have and differ about.
But this kind of work to me prompts big questions as well, that I think I have a kind of universal quality. Like, what are the questions we should be asking of ourselves and each other? That this is kind of like grand scale work that is concept driven, that is about ideas. There is something, yes, beautiful, approaching the sublime, all that stuff. But at the same time, I wonder if this kind of work also prompts seemingly disconnected questions, but that are about like the pressing questions of our humanity or our relationship, as you suggested, to nature, or and it does make me wonder, like, what are the questions of our times? Like, what would you say are some of the biggest, most important questions we should be asking ourselves?
As humans, or as individuals, or as a group?
As a group, I suppose. Let's do that first.
You want answers to this? This could be a long conversation.
Well, we've got 5 minutes.
Why is it that even though we know we're killing ourselves by destroying the environment, we continue to do so?
Okay, I think most people would probably come up with that, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Right. What about, I mean, we are going to run out of time. So what about the question you ask yourself? What is the most important question of your life?
Oh, at the moment, you don't want to know that question. uh, why bother waking up tomorrow if it's a lot more of the same of today? But it's those things that keep me trying to learn or find something new. It's the reason, I don't know. I think that the reason why I am so obsessed in my own personal way with what some people could see as a very like Western concept of knowledge and thought, like a building blocks, very Aristotelian, is just because, like, if I don't know that I'm moving and I feel like I'm on a treadmill, I have a hard time moving at all. Because what's the point? If I'm walking through a giant field in the fog and I can't tell whether I've gotten anywhere because I'm in the middle of a fog, then what's the point of moving at all? So I have to, go down on my knees, my hands in the dirt, and collect rocks along the way. Searching in the fog is not enough for me. It feels unsatisfying, as you put it.
Have you ever asked yourself a question that you couldn't answer?
Sure.
Have
Then
you?
my head shook like this and then it exploded.
So, I mean, that's something, I don't know if we asked this to each other before we started recording or if we've done it already, so forgive me if I'm repeating, but are we only capable of asking questions that we have a sense of the answer for already? Really? I mean, you know, in terms of big questions of asking within ourselves. You know, isn't that a fascinating thing that we could ask ourselves a question and ever expect an answer? Because if we have the answer, why do we ask the question?
Sure, of course. I mean, the flip side though is, I mean, and I think that you might argue, even if you ask the question, if you're searching for the answer, never find the answer, the search in itself is an experience that was worthy of the effort.
Hmm.
Um, I would say we're probably not that different. It's just that you would say, I'm just searching. And I would say, no, you're collecting in data all the time. You just don't want to see it as data because it's not the answer. Like the thing that you call the experience in the search is what I called accumulated knowledge.
But accumulated knowledge is really just adding, isn't it?
Sure.
Not wisdom.
Well, I think that knowledge compacted by years of experience becomes wisdom, like coal or diamonds.
I mean, I do ask, I ask myself, what might I find if I inquire into truth, really?
And what do you come up with?
Well, I'm still asking.
Do you think you'll ever actually find an answer, or is it enough just to ask the question for you?
It's enough to ask the question and give it my full attention.
Okay, that's fair.
Anyway, Bill, thank you.
Thank you, Sandi.